Tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela. Boat strike in the Caribbean Sea. President Trump declared that Venezuelan airspace should be considered closed.
At approximately 5:34 in the morning, local Caribbean time, radar operators aboard the USS Harry S. Truman detected 3 surface contacts emerging from the coastal waters near La Guaira. The contacts moved with unusual urgency, their speed climbing past 30 knots as they carved through the pre-dawn darkness in a formation that immediately drew attention from the carrier's Combat Information Center. Within moments, classification software confirmed what the watch crew had suspected. 3 Venezuelan patrol vessels, each displacing roughly 180 tons, and equipped with deck-mounted weapon systems that, while outdated by modern standards, still carried the potential to create a dangerous incident if mishandled or misunderstood. The USS Harry S. Truman had been conducting routine freedom of navigation operations in international waters, maintaining a steady 18-knot transit along a corridor recognized by every maritime nation as open ocean, calm seas, clear visibility, and a textbook operational environment. Nothing about the morning suggested the kind of confrontation that was now beginning to unfold. Yet, as the 3 Venezuelan vessels adjusted their heading and accelerated toward the American formation, the situation shifted from routine to critical in less than 3 minutes. What made the approach particularly striking was not just the speed, but the geometry. The Venezuelan craft were not shadowing from a distance or conducting parallel observation, tactics commonly used by navies monitoring foreign vessels near their territorial boundaries. Instead, they angled themselves directly into the projected path of the carrier strike group, forming a line that stretched across the very corridor the American ships intended to transit. Naval analysts who have studied similar maritime encounters often describe this maneuver as an intercept posture, a deliberate configuration designed to force the approaching formation into making a choice between altering course or pressing through a contested line. If you are ready to follow this high-stakes confrontation step by step, and understand how modern naval power is projected without firing a single shot, make sure to hit subscribe to our channel, because what unfolds over the next several minutes will demonstrate exactly why the United States Navy remains the benchmark against which all other fleets are measured. Now imagine for a moment that you're standing on the bridge of that carrier in the dim light of early morning, watching 3 fast-moving patrol boats racing toward your position at over 30 knots. Your radar screens are lighting up with collision alerts. Your crew is watching you for direction. The distance is closing rapidly, and every decision you make in the next 60 seconds will either de-escalate the situation or push it toward an outcome that could make international headlines. Would you hold your course, trusting in the discipline and capability of your formation, or would you order a course change to avoid the confrontation entirely? The American response came with a kind of calculated precision that defines carrier strike group operations. The USS Oscar Austin, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer positioned on the carrier's port quarter, began adjusting its course with a maneuver so deliberate it appeared almost casual to observers unfamiliar with naval tactics. The destroyer increased speed, pushing its gas turbine engines to higher output as it slid forward and outward, carving a new trajectory that placed the 9,200-ton warship directly between the approaching Venezuelan craft and the USS Harry S. Truman. Military analysts who have examined similar maritime encounters in contested waters have frequently noted that this positioning technique serves multiple purposes simultaneously. It creates a physical barrier that forces the approaching vessels to reveal their true intentions, transforms the geometry of the confrontation by claiming the critical intercept angle before the adversary can secure it, and demonstrates resolve without escalating to weapon systems activation. The destroyer was not threatening. It was simply occupying space with authority. Within minutes of the Oscar Austin's course adjustment, another element of the American response became visible against the brightening Caribbean sky. An MH-60R Seahawk helicopter lifted from the Truman's flight deck, its rotors cutting through the humid morning air as it climbed to approximately 600 feet and established an orbital pattern above the destroyer. Naval aviation specialists have documented in numerous operational reviews how helicopter overwatch serves as both an intelligence-gathering platform and a psychological deterrent. The aircraft's presence communicates awareness, surveillance capability, and the ability to respond rapidly to any sudden change in the tactical picture below. From altitude, the Seahawk's sensor operators activated their forward-looking infrared cameras and began recording the Venezuelan formation in high definition. Every detail, became visible through the advanced optics. The patrol craft hulls, their deck-mounted weapon systems, the crew members moving across exposed sections of the vessels. The footage streamed in real time back to the carrier's Combat Information Center, where watch officers studied each frame for signs of hostile intent or preparation for aggressive action. The Venezuelan boats maintained their speed, pushing white wakes across the calm surface as they continued toward the line the Oscar Austin now defended. They showed no indication of slowing, no sign of altering their intercept course. And as the range continued to shrink, one reality became increasingly clear to everyone monitoring the situation. The United States had positioned itself to control the encounter, but Venezuela had not yet acknowledged that control. At 5:47 in the morning, the USS Oscar Austin's main battery, a Mark 45 5-inch gun, mounted forward of the bridge, began a slow, measured rotation. The movement was not rapid or aggressive. Instead, the barrel eased through its arc with deliberate control, stopping at an angle that placed it in a general orientation toward the approaching Venezuelan formation, without locking onto any specific target. Defense observers who have analyzed tension management at sea often point to this type of weapon system adjustment as a textbook example of signaling preparedness without crossing into provocation. Around the destroyer, other systems shifted into heightened states of readiness. The Phalanx close-in weapon system, a white-domed radar-guided gun designed to intercept missiles and aircraft at close range, activated its tracking sensors in passive mode. The system's radars measured angles and velocities without emitting the kind of aggressive illumination signatures that adversaries interpret as imminent attack. Meanwhile, the ship's SBY-1 phased array radar, the technological heart of the Aegis combat system, maintained its continuous sweep of the surrounding battle space, tracking every movement of the Venezuelan vessels while remaining in a posture that communicated awareness rather than aggression. Above the formation, the Seahawk helicopter continued its wide orbital pattern, its cameras recording the scene, while its very presence served as a reminder that the American strike group possessed multiple layers of observation and response capability. Military publications that have examined naval deterrence strategies repeatedly emphasize how visibility itself functions as a form of power projection. When a navy demonstrates its systems openly, but controls them professionally, it creates pressure on the opposing force to reconsider its course of action without requiring any actual use of force. For those trying to understand the psychology of this moment, it is essential to recognize that modern naval confrontations often hinge not on what weapons are fired, but on what capabilities are displayed. The United States was showing Venezuela exactly what it would face if the situation escalated, while simultaneously giving every opportunity for de-escalation to occur naturally. Yet the Venezuelan patrol craft continued forward, their bows cutting through the water with stubborn determination, closing to less than 6 nautical miles from the American formation. The first transmission from the American formation traveled across the open maritime frequencies, using the standardized language that the United States Navy has employed for decades in international waters. The message carried no hostility, no ultimatums, only a clear statement of position, reminding all vessels in the area that the carrier strike group was transiting a lawful corridor recognized under international maritime law, and that safe navigation practices required all nearby craft to operate with appropriate caution and awareness. The transmission went out on channels monitored by commercial shipping, fishing fleets, and coastal stations throughout the region, making the American position immediately public and unambiguous. Yet Venezuela chose to respond not through voice communications, but through visual signals. The lead patrol vessel raised a sequence of maritime flags, their colors sharp against the morning sky, conveying messages about territorial enforcement and security zone authority that echoed the political rhetoric Caracas has used in past disputes over Caribbean waters. By selecting flags over radio, Venezuela avoided direct verbal confrontation, while still projecting its claim of authority over what the rest of the maritime community considers open ocean. The symbolic defiance was clear, even if the method remained indirect. What followed was a period of profound tension wrapped in silence. Neither side issued follow-up messages. Neither formation altered course. The American ships maintained their steady 18-knot transit, engines turning with mechanical consistency, while the Venezuelan patrol craft continued holding position in the contested corridor, their diesel engines producing a different acoustic signature that sonar operators aboard the Oscar Austin tracked with precision. For nearly 4 minutes, the two formations existed in a state of mutual observation. The Americans monitored every fluctuation in the Venezuelan vessel's speed and bearing. The Venezuelans watched the massive carrier and its escorts approach with unwavering trajectory. The ocean surface between them shrank with each passing second, and the psychological weight of the moment pressed down on every bridge crew member who understood how quickly miscalculation could transform a standoff into crisis. Then, at 5:53 in the morning, the Venezuelan formation made its decision. The lead patrol vessel reduced its speed first, dropping from 31 knots to approximately 24 knots in a deceleration pattern that registered immediately on the Oscar Austin surface tracking systems. Within 30 seconds, the other two Venezuelan craft mirrored the adjustment, and their formation beginning to lose the tight cohesion that had characterized their approach. The change was not dramatic or sudden, rather it appeared as a gradual easing, the kind of maneuver a commander executes when realizing the confrontation has reached its natural limit without achieving its intended effect. As their speed continued dropping, the Venezuelan vessels began drifting toward a new heading that angled them away from the direct intercept line they had held for the previous 8 minutes. The shift looked almost casual, as though they were simply adjusting their patrol route rather than withdrawing from a contested position. Observers familiar with how nations manage pride during maritime standoffs would recognize this technique immediately, a controlled departure that avoids the appearance of retreat while still accomplishing the tactical reality of disengagement. Throughout the Venezuelan withdrawal, the USS Harry S. Truman maintained its exact course and speed. The massive carrier's helm did not adjust by a single degree. Its engines continued turning at the same steady rhythm. There was no acknowledgement of the Venezuelan departure, no radio transmission declaring success, no visible reaction from the bridge crew. The American formation simply continued its transit as though the entire encounter had been nothing more than routine traffic management on an open ocean highway. Naval strategists who have studied carrier group operations often emphasize that this steadiness carries profound psychological weight. The vessel that maintains course without deviation sends an unmistakable message about confidence and authority. And in this confrontation, it was Venezuela that moved first, Venezuela that adjusted heading, and Venezuela that chose disengagement over further escalation. By 6:02 in the morning, the three patrol craft had faded back toward their coastal waters, their wakes flattening as they reduced to standard patrol speed and turned eastward. What unfolded in those early morning hours was not simply a close naval encounter. It was a demonstration of how maritime power projection operates in the modern era, where presence and discipline often prove more effective than firepower. Venezuela had attempted to challenge a United States carrier strike group by positioning patrol craft directly in its transit corridor, creating a situation designed to force either a course change or a confrontation. Yet through methodical positioning, controlled system displays, and unwavering adherence to international navigation rights, the American formation transformed the challenge into a lesson. Military observers who analyze these kinds of encounters consistently note that the side that maintains composure under pressure controls the narrative of the confrontation. Venezuela accelerated toward the American ships, expecting either hesitation or aggressive response. Instead, they met something far more powerful: professional certainty. The USS Oscar Austin claimed the critical angle without emotion. The Seahawk provided overwatch without aggression. The weapon system signaled readiness without threat, and the carrier itself never deviated, demonstrating the kind of confidence that can only come from knowing your capabilities are unmatched. In the end, Venezuela withdrew not because it was forced to retreat, but because it recognized the futility of pressing further. When your adversary refuses to acknowledge your challenge and simply continues operations as though you are irrelevant, that delivers a message no radio transmission could match. So here's the question for you. If you had been commanding that American destroyer, watching three patrol boats racing toward your carrier at over 30 knots, would you have held that line with the same unwavering discipline? Let us know in the comments below. And if this analysis helped you understand how modern naval confrontations actually work, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our breakdowns of maritime power in action. Because the next encounter could happen anywhere, anytime, and understanding these dynamics matters more than ever